Welcome back to Capitol Tonight. As Jack Arpey just mentioned, this legislative session is just about over. The Senate finished early this morning at 4:20 a.m. The Assembly is scheduled to wrap up on Tuesday. So tonight, we thought we would take a look back at what the heck happened during this legislative session, as well as what happened in the House yesterday with two insiders. Morgan Hook is a partner at Blue Jacket Strategies, and Jack O'Donnell, managing partner at O'Donnell and Associates. And it's great to see you both. We are going to start with Jack. Before we get to the legislature, how do you think Governor Hochul did yesterday during her congressional testimony?
Well, I thought the governor did all right. It is a really tough format, and certainly the camera and the format produced some cringy moments for her. But, you know, the last few folks who withstood a questioning like this from Elise Stefanik had to resign. So she did a lot better than the president of Harvard. It definitely tells me it'd be really fun to watch them in a neutral format, like answering questions from you in a debate one-on-one, rather than, you know, not one of them talking and the other one not being able to answer. But, you know, the governor stuck to her points, stood up for democratic principles. I think she lived to fight another day.
Yeah, I hope you're right that debate format does come to pass. And, you know, it's a performative sort of thing when somebody talks in the House, in Congress. Yeah. And it's definitely stacked for the House, so to speak. So what did you think?
I'll go a step further. I think she did better than okay. And I think it's important to take a step back here and talk about what these things are. It's completely performative.
Yes.
You know, I think it was probably once true that congressional hearings were designed for people to get information so that they could then go make laws. What we saw yesterday was a complete political dog and pony show. Yeah. The proof of which is that the third person who spoke was someone who was not even on the committee, which was Elise Stefanik. So clearly the Republicans who run that committee and decide who gets to speak when, they said, oh, Elise, come on in here with your big pictures and blown up scary looking faces and yell at the governor for 5 minutes. I think Hochul was fine. And I actually want to talk about one thing that she said, but I think Elise Stefanik sounded, frankly, a little bit nervous. She couldn't, make a strong point. The only soundbite that we heard, and I took a little time this morning to kind of click through different stations in New York, because again, most New Yorkers aren't going to see that full 5-minute testimony. Right. They're going to see a soundbite. And the soundbite that people took was when Kathy Hochul said, I know you're trying to get a viral moment here. And Elise Stefanik quickly shut her off. That is the clip that people are going to see. And I promised you a history lesson. There is obviously a famous Joseph Welch saying to Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? It's a very famous thing that happened actually 71 years during the McCarthy hearings. It happened 71 years ago on June 9th, 1954. This week is the anniversary. And it is, I think it's a moment that's remembered because it was someone in a congressional hearing saying what everyone in the room knew to be true, which was, this is all a sham. What are you doing? And I don't know that we can give Kathy Hochul the full have you no decency, sir? People are going to remember this. But I think pointing out what everyone knew, that this is political sham, you're trying for a viral moment. Yeah. She said that out loud, and it really took the wind out of the sails for Elise Stefanik.
That moment in the Army McCarthy hearings was huge because it held up a mirror to some of the worst perpetrators of that kind of violent hate. But yesterday was such a weird day. Jack, did you see what happened with Congressman Mannion and Congressman Lawler? Did you see that fracas on the floor?
I did. I mean, I all of this is wild, right? And that was following the senator from California earlier. There is very little decency there now, right? To use the line. But again, I think, to the point about Hochul and Stefanik, I don't know that there are a lot of neutrals watching any of this, right? So I think Stefanik got her moment where it's going to say, she took on Hochul about illegal immigrants. Hochul's going to get her point. And I think the same thing is true of this Mannion-Lawler thing, right? If you're a John Mannion fan, you thought, well, great, this is a kid from Tip Hill giving him a little what for. And if you're a Lawler supporter, you're going to say, oh, gosh, why can't Democrats behave, right? Only we get to yell at people.
Right, exactly. I know, actually, what Jack O'Donnell is referencing is the statement that Mannion put out post yelling at Lawler on the floor of the House. He said, "I'm a kid from Tip Hill that's fighting for my hometown and my country. If making some noise on the House floor and calling out Trump enablers draws attention to what's happening to our country right now, right before our eyes, then good." Lawler's response was John Mannion was entirely unhinged and unprofessional. No wonder numerous staffers have previously alleged a toxic work environment. So you spoke to some Central New Yorkers recently after this happened. What did they say?
Well, so it's interesting, and I understand why you guys did it, but it's interesting to me that Mike Lawler's talking about unprofessional conduct, because the rest of that statement includes him swearing at John Mannion on the record.
Well, that's why we didn't use it.
Exactly. So yeah, I did. I called up some former colleagues and some friends who've worked with Senator Mannion, and it was interesting because they said, actually, Senator Mannion, excuse me, not Senator, Congressman Mannion and Congressman Lawler, there's some bad blood that exists between these two that go back to their Albany days. Of course,
really?
They both served, yes. And
State Senator Mannion,
yes,
and Assemblyman Lawler.
Assemblyman Lawler goes back to some Albany, they know each other. This isn't like they just met a few months ago when they got to Congress. This goes back. But the other thing that they told me, folks that I talked to out there, is that one, because you mentioned what happened in California with the senator being, forcibly
Alex Padilla,
pulled.
yes.
So this was because of that. The tension, what I've been told is that tensions were very, very high on the floor. After people on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, they were horrified by what they saw. And some of this was John Mannion sort of verbalizing that frustration and kind of saying, there's one side of the aisle here that isn't saying anything about this. It isn't saying anything about law enforcement forcibly grabbing a U.S. senator. And that was why he was basically yelling at Mike Lawler.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage. And click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.